Well, welcome to the NPERS School Plan Pre-Retirement webinar. Good morning. My name is Matt. I'm one of the training specialists here at NPERS. With me today is Alex. Alex is our other training specialist, and also Heather. Heather's the manager of our education services. So, yep, just as the title suggests, Heather is my boss, so I will attempt to be on my best behavior today to have a job tomorrow. Um, I do want to mention the fourth extremely valuable member of our team. Jared is our marketing and communications specialist. Jared is spending today kind of behind the scenes. He's doing all that communicating and marketing stuff that he does. On behalf of all four of us, though, I do want to thank you for your commitment to join us today. We are excited to talk with you about your retirement plan. That's what today is all about. Now we're going to go to the star of our show, and that is literally your retirement plan. We love to talk about your plan. And NPERS is the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement System. We're the folks that administers your plan. This slide shows our contact information. There on the top are our phone numbers, our digits for you to contact us. And then there's our website address. We're going to refer to that often as we continue to brag on how amazing our website is. Again, there's office hours, and then locations are there as well. Now, you're going to want to keep this information handy. Why? Because we have your money. So, if you're like me, I like to have information of where my money is right handy at my fingertips. Now, speaking of the office, we can set up appointments. Those appointments can either be in office, over the phone, or over online. So call and set an appointment if you have questions, but specifically if you're close to what you're thinking will be your time of retirement. Please call in and set up an appointment. You'll be able to have that representative look over your account beforehand, calculate some estimates, create your retirement packet, and just be ready to answer any specific questions about your personal account. Now, we recommend you call in to set up that time anywhere between that 1 and 6 months prior to your expected retirement day. Now, I'm going to repeat that for the people in the back. We recommend you schedule that connection with us no more than 6 months, but no less than 1 month before your anticipated retirement date. You don't have to have a meeting. You don't have to set up one of those appointments to retire. If you so choose, just simply call in, let us know of your plans, and we'll send out the paperwork, and that will get that process rolling. I do want to follow up with a caveat for not only for our call center representatives, but for all of us. We cannot provide financial advice. Myself and our team are not qualified or trained, credentialed to provide financial advice. Foundationally, you should contact a trusted financial advisor to provide advice. We're here to provide information and options and help you move forward with these options to consider what's best for you moving forward in retirement. So now we're just going to keep rolling from our information to our website. This is what the homepage of our website says, looks like. And again, it just gives me permission to brag about our website. It is packed with resources, stacked on top of more resources. Just check those bullets there on the right of that slide. We have constant updates and intentional help to enable your journey of understanding and planning for your retirement. I don't say this, it is without a doubt the world's best website in the whole universe. You'll be hearing kind of a swaggering about us all day, all day. The way you can take our website to the next level would be, of course, to reap the benefits of intentional use of your account access. Here's a quick list in the middle of the slide on the left of what you can access. You can review your compensation, review your credited years of service. These are the two things that really have the largest impact on what your monthly benefit will be upon retirement. The next couple of benefits, or the next couple of bullets there, say you can review your beneficiaries. Just want to make sure that that you have that information up to date. And then lastly, view your 1099-R. That's the online document that you'll use kind of like your W-2s for your taxes. So because we're amazing, we have included that list there at the bottom of the information you would need to gather when you set up your account. Okay, so make sure you have those 3 bullets in front of you, and then please take the time to jump in and get your personal account created through our website. So, by way of introduction, my name is Matt. I've been married to Brooke for a long, long time, the world's best wife. We have 2 daughters who live in Oregon and a son, Ethan. The one thing I need you to know about me is I absolutely hate mornings. If it were up to me, if I were the boss, this thing would start about noon. We'd have a cup of coffee together and get rolling. I hate mornings, except for this morning. If you happen to know, before kind of the gray and the clouds came in, did you see that orange sunrise? Did you see the incredible colors that were coming through before the gray? Yeah, I had kind of a little tear in my eye when I was looking out east today, because I thought, the only thing more beautiful than this is the sight of our benefit estimator. That's right. Isn't it beautiful? This is what the benefit estimator looks like when you pull it up. So I just wanted to connect this with our conversation about our website. This is a powerful tool that you have. Keep this in front of you. Run benefits often. Now, when you do that, remember, these numbers are estimates, not determinations, but there is power in these numbers. They will help you connect your goal or goals for retirement. If you have numbers in front of you, then you're going to be able to make a plan to reach those goals. The benefit estimator is on the non-secure site or non-secure side of our website. You don't need to log in to get rolling. In fact, I invite you to run this estimate several times, changing time frames, changing opportunities, different options for how you would receive your benefits when that comes. So run this option. When you get through this information, you're going to see drop-down menus that help you enter the information moving forward. So obviously, you're going to start with date of birth, your estimated termination date, when you might want those benefits to begin. And, those kind of fields, just go ahead and move forward. I do want to call your attention as we keep moving forward here that these fields are going to pop up. When you hit this, when did you begin plan participation field, that's going to pop those different options for you. That date range put in when you began your employment and started to participate in this retirement plan. Then, depending on which one of those 4 tiers of retirement beginning or plan beginning, you will see a different number of estimated salary fields pop up. We'll talk about this here in a second, but this will generate the correct number of estimated highest salaries that you earned. Okay. So I do want to just kind of give you this pro tip. Many of the fields will have a pop-up help screen that will help you just kind of define what it is that you need to input. just to help alleviate any confusion. And, so you can just put in the most accurate information for the bestest estimate moving forward. Again, you'll enter in your account balance in this next screen. Again, in that field, it's just optional because the reality is your account balance doesn't factor into the amount of monthly benefit you'll receive. But that balance does come into play with some of the death benefit options. And Heather will talk about all these details later. Uh, but then finally at the bottom, we ask you to click in your beneficiary type and their date of birth. Then that brings us next to what I call kind of the 30,000 foot view of your estimate. There's a couple of details on this slide I want to hit on. First of all, that option, that column on the left that's highlighted option, each one of those options is actually a hot link. If you click on one of those options in the estimator, it will bring you to a page with tons more detail about that option so you can know exactly which one they are and the differences. I do want to mention that each one of those options, Heather's going to do just a master's class later on this morning about each one of them, the impacts, and which one might be best for you moving forward. We are super intentional about adding on that lower left there, you see that printer icon? Wanted to make sure and have that image in front of you because I wanted to magnify the benefit of this estimator. Did you hear what I did? An estimator benefit. Never mind. Print out these estimates often. We want you to have on hand going through several estimates, printing them out, and then you have them in front of you because what we really want you to do next is sit down with, maybe your loved ones or with your financial advisor. I'm sorry, I bumped that a little too early. Sit down with those folks and have these options in front of them. Talk about what you seem or what you think might work best and get their feedback. Have this discussion moving forward after you've run and printed out several of these. Now, what I want to do is call your attention not to the left column, but to that gross and net benefit amount there on the top right. If you're intuitive, and you probably already noticed, those are the same amounts. But now we have a brand new tool that's going to help us move forward to define those amounts. We have now the tax estimator. So we just ask that you jump in on our website to this tax estimator often also. This is a brand new tool. We ask you to read and understand the information at the begin, and then if you feel comfortable, go ahead and agree to that disclaimer, and that brings you to this page, which again is an opportunity for you to enter your personal tax information and preferences. Okay, move through each field, and then that will generate this estimate. It provides more, valuable information that will funnel into the reality of strong retirement planning. Tax numbers go into that blender of collecting all the information and numbers you have and that you need. Okay, now there's more of this discussion about what's next on this next important slide. We just spent some time talking about some tools that will help you get to this point. I'm thinking that a lot of you have questions centered around, how do I get my money? What's the time frame look like? Well, let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, you don't have to do anything until you're ready to retire. Like I talked about earlier, when you're in that 6 to 1 month time frame, that's when you need to start the process. Call us, set up an appointment. We'll review your work history, your verify your salaries with you, your years of service. We'll help you continue that process of getting some estimates for you. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll get your retirement packet out to you. Now that will come to you in that 45 to 30 days prior to your effective date of retirement. complete that, get back to us. That's how that process looks for taking the first step of many moving forward. Now, I want to take the conversation away from, kind of procedures and details to maybe more of a larger context. Because, yeah, the reality is it does take more than luck to achieve financial security. The reality is retirement has changed. It's changed drastically, even over the last couple of years. For different people, to use this three-leaf clover graphic, these leaves have changed. Some have shrank, for various reasons. To take that one, for instance, your retirement plan might look different. Let me speak for myself. Um, for me, long ago, when I changed careers and left a particular organization, I was forced to cash out my retirement. So I didn't have that now as part of the big picture. Additionally, we might need a reminder that other kind of leaf of the clover, the Social Security, remember, that's a program that was only designed to replace about 35, maybe 40% of our income in retirement. And then maybe that third leaf, that personal savings leaf, maybe that's a little kind of smaller than we hope. And I know for me personally, inflation was something that's been out of my control. We can't control inflation, but for me, that hit of inflation, it has dug into my savings a little bit. Of course, full disclosure, the other thing that's been hitting my savings is, my ginormous addiction to guitars. But if I can control that, and if we can stem off inflation, those kind of things, we just have to keep that personal savings leaf as well. But what that does is brings us to this next graphic of now our retirement looks more like a 4-leaf clover. Because the reality is some people are going to need to continue earning in retirement. Some people will just have to have outside earnings. Now, for some of you, you just might want to work a little bit after retirement, number one, just so you don't just get bored. Or maybe you don't drive your family completely bonkers by being home all the time. Or again, maybe you make just a little bit more cheese so you can buy another guitar. Whatever you desire in retirement, whether you want to fish or travel or play bingo with your friends, that's what we want for you. But let's help kind of work on building up all 4 of these leaves to your advantage so we can get to your goals in retirement. Remember, your goals are what we want to keep focused on. I want to stop here and give you some reassurance. Remember, we're talking about your money here. No one else has access to your money, including, bankruptcy, financial hardship. You can't touch this money. The only possible way that someone might get access to your pension is if you run into trouble with the IRS or you get a divorce. So, 2 things to keep in mind. Keep the tax man happy, keep your spouse happy. No worries, okay? This money is invested and available to you only when you quit or retire. The other thing I do want to mention is there's no Social Security offset. This is a benefit that says that there's the amount of your benefit that you receive from us will not affect the amount of your Social Security monthly payment. And then conversely, the amount of your Social Security payment will not affect your the monthly benefit from us. So there is no Social Security offset. Now from the big picture to you. Let's talk about the design of your plan. Your plan is called a defined benefit plan. Okay. Your defined benefit is a monthly pension check for the rest of your life. So my notes say hold for applause because it's pretty incredible. This is the Cadillac of retirement plans. The defined benefit provides a monthly pension check for the rest of your life. So let's drill down into this a little bit. The formula that calculates your monthly benefit is fourfold. Let's talk a second for each of these bullets. The top two are really the high drivers. Number one, salary, of course, you're like we talked about before, but depending on which of the four tiers that you are a part of, is the number of average highest salaries that will be used to generate that salary component of your formula. The second piece of your formula is your credible service. We'll make sure and work with you and make sure we arrive at the accurate amount of credible service that goes into your formula. The third bullet is called the formula factor. This is a factor set by law. Now, this multiplier right now is currently at 2%. That is just a formula that you don't have to do anything to include that multiplier. It just goes in to boost your monthly benefit a little bit. And that last option is, or that last bullet is called the option factor. And what that simply means is you will choose one of the options of how you want your funds dispersed to you upon retirement. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Heather will explain all of those options, but the option you pick will obviously, kind of help define what that formula, what that calculation looks like for your monthly benefit. Like I say, our plan has to be funded before y'all get a check. So just for your interest and for, moving forward, the design and formula is connected to how our plan is funded. Your plan is funded in 4 ways. First, it's funded by your contributions. Every one of your paychecks, you currently give 9.78% of your salary goes into your contributions. Then your employer matches at 101% of your contribution. Then the state of Nebraska also chips in with another 2%. But the majority is, you might not know this, but the majority of the funding for our retirement plan comes in the investments of your contributions. We have amazing, smart people that all they do all day is think about the best way to invest your money for the, kind of the safest but the bestest return on investments. Which brings us to the way to keep information in front of us as we are moving through this formula of how to create your calculations for monthly basis. In all things, information is power. A lot of information comes from the annual statement that's mailed out to you annually. You can see an example of this on the screen in front of you, also in that kind of materials that I mentioned. It's on page 6 of your pension tab. If you're following along, you're with us right now. You're seeing that annual statement in front of you. There's a plethora of discoveries to make here on this page. You'll find what we have on record for your compensation for the last year, your years of service credit. So please review that information. Just make sure you're on the same page for accuracy. You can also find the beneficiaries. They're listed on your annual report and annual statement. And then also your contact information. We want to make sure that that is up to date. Again, we have that annual statement there in front of you. Now I'm going to pause with all of these definitions and explanation and details. I'm going to tell you a story, if it's okay. I mentioned my perfect family, Brooke, my wife, and our 2 kids out in our 2 daughters in Oregon. I also mentioned Ethan, our son. He lives here in Lincoln. About 2 years ago, Ethan bought this smoker. He has become an artist with this smoker. He's got an app on his phone that he can control his smoker with. He's done research on the best rubs and temperatures, and yeah, it's amazing what he can do. Well, about 6 weeks ago, he went away for the weekend, and I asked him before he went. He said, "Ethan, can I just borrow your smoker? We've got some friends coming over that night, and I want to just wow them by creating this brisket." I had in mind, I had this vision of kind of the dining room table erupting in cheers as I brought in this brisket and set it down in front of them. Oh, it was a moment. So that morning I got up early. You remember how I hate mornings? I got up early and threw it on the smoker and rubbed it the night before. And oh, I can't wait to tell you when I sat that in front of them. That brisket is just as dry as some of the information that we have to go through now. I love telling that story. So, well, let's talk a little bit about taxes. There's nothing better than, kind of 9:30 in the morning talking about taxes. So I do want to hit this initial information about taxes. If you individually provided any contributions into your retirement plan before 1986, they came into us after tax. Now, all then that contribution will come back to you tax free once you receive that distribution. Now, the contributions that we put in are opposite, but before 1986, they came in after tax. So the way that it has been set up, the method to return those contributions and the tax implication falls under what we call the safe harbor method. What that means, it's not coming back in a lump sum, but you will receive that little bit back tax-free in each monthly check. Overall, that's the definition of how handled pre-1986 contributions tax-wise. I think it's best if we just go through a quick example. For example, let's pretend you're age 55 and you had $5,000 of pre-1986 contributions. So, according to this chart, the safe harbor method would take that $5,000 divided by 310 payments, like we see because we're 55 in this example. So you would receive $16.13 on additional to each of your next 310 monthly benefit checks, tax-free. Okay, so that's how, using this safe harbor method, we have handled those pre-86 contributions to the plan. In the bigger picture of taxes, taxes are withheld from each monthly payment, from each monthly, benefit payment to you. Just when you thought the fun with taxes was over, this means that, your taxes are withheld really the same way as when you worked, because now in retirement, your job is receiving your monthly pension. Basically, at this point, retirement will be your new job. So you have to fill out the W-4P, which stands for pension, and the W-4N, which is Nebraska taxes. You'll tell us what you want to withhold for both federal and Nebraska state income taxes from your monthly pension check. Now, you can change that withholding at any time simply by submitting another form to us. Now, please note, I want to take for a second and note that if you move to another state, you will need to accomplish two tasks with respect to your state taxes. First, you need to contact the Department of Revenue of the state that you're moving forward and ask them how to move forward, okay? Number two, you still need to fill out a W-4N for NPERS, for us. You need to state that you're exempt from Nebraska state taxes because you're now living in another state, okay? intentional redundancy on these last two bullets. Contact the Department of Revenue of the state you're moving to and fill out a W-4N for us with by marking that you are exempt from Nebraska state taxes. Okay. Now let's move into more riveting conversation about how your formula is built for creating your benefit amount. Okay. Mentioned before, over the years, the unicameral has made changes to your retirement plan. That has created these 4 different tiers in your defined benefit plan. So let's just take a second and just remind yourself of when you joined, when you started your position, and then, that would say when you began to, have partnership in this plan. Because of when the date you started defines which tier you are, okay? The other thing than that tier, then again, like we mentioned before, defines the amount of the highest 12-month periods of salary that we will use for that calculation. So again, depending on the tier you are, tiers 1, you use the 3 highest 12 monthly salary periods. If you're tiers 2, 3, or 4, well, you look at your 5 highest 12-month payments. Now, how we do that is we look at your last day that you received payment. Then we go back 12 months, and that defines for us that year, that first 12-month compensation period. From there, it's easiest to move back 12-month periods from there. Then we look at those 12-month periods and identify either your 3 highest for tier 1 or 5 highest for the rest of the tiers. And that defines for us your entire work history. It doesn't matter when, they don't have to be consecutive, but that's how then we define those highest 12-month pay periods. The other element that connects to this salary component is the salary cap. To be honest, the wise man once said, sometimes brevity is wit. So I'm going to keep it simple. When calculating your retirement benefits, raises will be capped at 8% a year. Okay. Now, there's a couple of outliers, but that's the bottom line. 8% salary cap. Number one outlier is capping is only done during the last 5 years of your employment. Some people think that cap is throughout their employment history, but no, it's the last 5 years. Quick note number 2. Capping exists. We think it's important that we tell you why. Capping exists to discourage the term salary spiking. You might even know someone that worked just like a banshee in towards the end of their retirement. They were doing large amounts of overtime, extra duty, just so they would build up or really inflate their monthly amount of benefit because they were trying to show their highest amounts of salary there at the end. So we want to discourage salary spiking with this salary cap. So that's kind of the why moving forward. The next step in this calculation is to look at how many years of service you have accrued in the plan. Service time is for time worked while you're contributing to our retirement plan. It's verified by your employer to us. And again, like I mentioned before, you can track your personal service credit either through your annual statement or through us on your website. Under current state statute, 1,000 hours of work in 1 year will create that 1 year of service credit. So, nice try, but like I mentioned earlier, you can't work 3,000 hours in a year. It doesn't give you 3 years of service credit. Maximum is 1 per year. Now, you're welcome in advance, because what I'm going to tell you is there is tons more details in your binder. Like I said, those materials that we sent you or you clicked on, in your binder, there's tons more information about this service credit. whether, it's fractional service credit or there's some military, you might be qualified for some military service. So that information avalanche about service credit is on pages 11 and 12 of that pension section in your binder. So check that out. You might know someone who quit work in the public school system, Nebraska state system, and then they took a refund of their retirement account. So that when they chose that refund, that erased their service credit. But I think it's cool that there is a one-time option that everyone has if they took that refund of repaying the refund and then restoring your service credit upon reemployment. So now, if these following conditions are met, this might be an option. First, you must be, again, a regular employee contributing to the plan. Now, your application for purchase of refund, for that refund, if you want to pay off that refund, we must receive that within 5 years of reemployment and at least 60 days before you terminate. And finally, repayment must be completed within that 5 years of reemployment also. Your service credit will be restored in proportion to the amount paid. Repaying this also potentially returns you to your prior tier status of, when you were employed before. So this is another option moving forward of how to keep that service credit available to you after reemployment, if that's part of who you are. So now we talk about the bigger picture of why would you even consider purchasing more service credit. Again, we can determine our service credit, and we know that service credit defines the more service credit we have, the higher our monthly benefit. So maybe paying for some little extra time would jack up that monthly benefit. The other thing is paying for a little extra time might allow you to meet that rule of 85. Now, there are 3 ways that you can purchase, that you will be able to purchase service credit. 1, you can purchase service credit for time missed during a leave of absence. You can purchase up to 4 years if you are on a leave of absence from your employment. Number 2, you can purchase time for spent with another, like a out-of-state public school system, not in the state of Nebraska or even in the Omaha public schools. You can purchase time for spent working outside of the state. Now that's up to 10 years you can purchase. Or you can purchase 5 additional years of service credit if you're within that 12-month gap before your pre-retirement. Before your retirement, okay? So if you're within 12 months, you can purchase up to 5 additional years. Now, details about the conditions that need to be met and those purchases can be found. Again, I'm going to point you to the binder. Check out pages 13 through 17 for tons more details then, okay? So now we're going to bring you just, to another resource. Just when you thought we were done gifting you with resources, we've got another one. An estimator that you can reach, again, through the world's best website. Click into Member Resources and then click this Service Estimator. This is your service credit estimator that will help you define how to move forward if you do want to, purchase more service credit. So again, you would go through the fields of, the type of service that you were needing, those kinds of things. Open the estimator, move through these fields. There's help there for you, your estimated date, and what will be your benefit start date. Fill in these details. Again, there's some other interesting information for you to put, but let's look at this example that's put in. This person put in that they wanted 27 total years of service, and their highest 12-month period salary was $55,000. So it looks to me like this person might be trying to figure out how much it would cost if they wanted to purchase years of service to reach that rule of 85. So then after entering that, they said they want to purchase 3 years and 0 months that would get them to that rule of 85. And then that brings us to this estimate. Now you're seeing that that estimate for purchasing 3 years is just a little under, $59,000. Now that's a big chunk of change. However, you're purchasing service time. You're not only paying for your portion, but you'd also be paying for the employer match. Remember that 101% as well. So that's the school purchase estimator. It's a great tool we offer. Some of you are thinking this is way out of line, but for others, this might be a real opportunity for you to, in a very real way, boost that monthly benefit. Another kind of element that brings definition to your monthly benefit is your benefit eligibility. Are you vested? Uh, you must. So there are specific things that must happen before you begin to receive this monthly, the lifetime monthly benefit. Number one, it falls under the captain obvious, but you must quit work. Number two, you must be vested. To be vested, like you see in front of you, you must 5 years of credible service. If you have less than 5 years, you'd only be eligible for a refund. That refund would not include the employer match, but you are eligible to retire and start receiving that benefit even if you're not vested. You can move forward with that. More indicators of what vesting really is. What we're looking at is your age on your effective date. Like that first bullet says, not the day you quit working or not the day you started to think about it, but it's your effective date. That age determines whether you're eligible for a full unreduced benefit. So if you start receiving your benefit, if you choose to do that, there might be a benefit reduction. But let's start by talking about the unreduced benefit, okay? In your plan, normal retirement age, they actually use the word normal, is 65. So once you've attained age 65 with at least 5 years of service credit, you would begin to draw an unreduced lifetime benefit. Or this could also kick in by using that provision, like I referred to, either the rule of 85. You might know that if your age plus your years of service, your total years of service credit equal 85 or greater, you can cease employment and you begin drawing that unreduced retirement benefit at that age. If you decide to move forward and choose, to retire earlier in that age 60 to 64 bracket, there would be a 3% reduction for your benefit for every year before 65. Okay. Now that is a permanent reduction. It doesn't recalculate when you hit 65. That is a benefit reduction. Now, for some of you, it's ridiculous to take, to retire early and take that 3%, that chunk. But for some of you, it might be the best thing moving forward to your individual financial situation. Everyone in here is unique. So even with that reduction for some, with more payments taken earlier, it might be the best way to go. So contemplate these kinds of numbers, again, as you're building towards your benefit in your retirement goals. Next, we're going to keep the conversation moving forward about establishing your effective date. The effective date is when your benefits begin. The effective date will be the first day of the month following the occurrence of these 3 things, okay? First, you're eligible for benefits. Like I said, you're either vested and you've reached the age requirements, then you could take it without reduction. Secondly, you've terminated employment, okay? And third, you have completed your retirement application and we have received it in your office. After these three things occur, the first day of the following month will be considered your effective date of retirement. Now, the time frame to build off that effective date is the first payment you will receive anywhere between 60 to 90 days from your effective date. That first payment will be retroactive to your effective date. So that first payment could be huge. I mentioned that so you don't plan on that amount every month moving forward. The other element I want to mention is there is a potential of receiving a preliminary benefit. This is not unusual. The preliminary benefit is why we're waiting on final, compensation and service credit numbers from your employer. We will process a preliminary benefit and begin to pay you. Then once the school and kind of us have got together and all of those final informations have been, then we will recalculate your benefit and get you fully up to speed of what that monthly benefit would look like moving forward. Okay. Next, we want to just talk about COLA. I'm gonna like stay away from any kind of soda joke, whether you say, cola, soda, Coke. This is something completely different. The cost of living adjustment is basically, the fancy term is it's a hedge against inflation. It's an annual adjustment. It occurs every July, handled by our retirement office. You don't have to apply. The COLA is just factored in. If you're interested, and some people are, our COLA is like defined from the annual change in the CPIW index. It's the index entitled Wages of Urban Wage Earners and Clerical Workers. I know that's fascinating. Now, the four tiers that we talked about here earlier have all different impacts to the COLA. We'll take tier 1 first. There is a maximum of 2.5% COLA if you're a tier 1 member. That's just straight across the board. Maximum of 2.5%. If the COLA is less than that, you'd get less than that 2.5%. The element that's interesting is this 75% purchasing power that you must maintain with respect to COLA. Well, let me give you an example of this, of how this 75% purchasing power So in 2022, inflation hit 6.1%. Now, obviously, you would get the maximum 2.5%, okay? But what happened is, with inflation so high, you lost purchasing power because the COLA didn't match what the overall inflation rate was. So you lost 3.6% purchasing power. You with me? 6.1 minus 2.5. Okay, you lost 3.6% of your purchasing power. If at any time someone's loss of purchasing power would reach 25%, you would get that full CPI increase. Okay, now this example, it was only 3.6%, way different than 25%, but it is a provision there that if inflation gets really, really ridiculous, on the level of Venezuela or something, there is some ways to help moving forward with that COLA. Tiers 2, 3, and 4 are much easier to explain. Tiers 2, 3, and 4 have a maximum of 1.0% COLA without that purchasing power provision matched in. Okay, the CPIW is less, you get that rate. But that is the COLA, and that is one of the last elements that goes in to the calculation of your benefits. Now we're at the point of, I just want to spend one more time bragging about our website. I kind of went really quickly through a myriad of benefits, but also since I mentioned it at the beginning, we've talked about all these different estimators that are available: the benefit estimator, the tax estimator, the service credit estimator, and others. But we also take very seriously ensuring that this is up to date. If we're not talking with you, we spend a lot of our time making sure that all of the information with, like, for example, we keep an eye on what the legislature is doing. If what they're doing is going to affect your retirement plan, we keep you up to date with that. There's tons of videos that are very helpful. Even last year's webinar is posted on there. We edited a little bit and posted it on there. So if there's information that we went through maybe too quickly through this first hour, jump onto that video and look through it and focus on what information you want to look at again. We have tons of videos, investment options. There's just tons of financial investment and financial help that are on there too. We have tons of publications, including a quarterly newsletter. There's plan booklets that have more details on top of details about your plans. And I mentioned the forms that are available, beneficiary forms. I already mentioned all that good stuff. But what I do want to mention one more time in kind of the power of intentional redundancy is please take advantage of setting up your personal account. That can be accessed through, you see that upper in the blue ribbon on the top, there's that yellow login button. Go ahead and click that. And that will help you move forward. So with that, I think that's about all there is for me to kind of present for you. So let's just take a second and gander, see how we're doing in our Q&A. Are there any questions that we need to kind of address here? There's one about whether the poll is not.
Did have
No,
one about the cola that just showed
okay.
up that I think that is worth addressing. Um, it's thank you, Brian. It says, is the COLA automatic or do we need to buy it? And Alex answered you, of course, it is automatic on the school plan after the first year. And yes, it is only after that year. It's added right on. We also send you yearly letters, okay, about the COLA that is on the school plan. So you get that probably right before you get your annual statement in, like, July-ish, August. So you'd be able to see that. We always send that in writing to you so you know. Yeah. Well, hey everybody. Hope you made it back from break. Um, Maybe, had that stretch, got that coffee, and we're all awake. Um, we're going to get started, so hope you're comfortable. My name, like Matt said, is Heather Critchfield Smith, and I am the Education Services Manager for NPERS. Um, I have worked for NPERS for about 13 years, and I didn't just always do training or always be a manager. I started in the mailroom here in our office, and I've kind of done a bunch of different things. I worked for our mailroom. I worked for Data Services, which is the department that adds in all your tax information, direct deposits, beneficiaries. I've worked in our processing area, so I have processed annuity payments. I've done manual calculations. I processed deaths. I've done a lot of customer service. And then I moved to training. So I do this. I'm excited and always excited to speak to our school plan members, not just because, it's one of our bigger plans, which it is, but I am the daughter of a teacher and the granddaughter of a teacher. Both of them were in special education, and instead I do this. But I also have been able to see how this plan affects Nebraskans, not just teachers, but everybody that works in a school is in this plan, and there's good reason for that. This is a great retirement plan. So I'm always just thrilled because I've seen what this has done for Nebraska families, and it's a really great thing. So with that said, that's me. Let's get started on what I want to talk about today. I'm going to get into this. The slide that I have up is for a brand new page, and I'm really ecstatic to be able to show this year. This is our financial resources page. We work really hard. In fact, we work really hard on being good stewards to our membership and getting them the kind of education opportunities that we can provide them, for free, that are going to help in the long run. This is for aimed at our younger members. We remove the age requirements on our seminars and pre-retirement education opportunities so we could address more of our younger membership. Why? Because, everybody's heard that thing, oh, they never taught me how to balance a checkbook in high school, blah, blah, blah. We want to be able to get people on the right track early. Okay, so we're offering this stuff on our financial resources page. When I say this stuff, we worked in conjunction with the Nebraska Council for Economic Education to offer resources, programs that are going to help people be more financially well, to understand things like how to budget, what's investing, things that will get them to a successful retirement. Some of these things we offer on this page, and this is just kind of an overview. We've got the Enrich program, which is fantastic. It has a lot of resources. It talks about insurance needs, estate planning, budgeting, all this great stuff, totally free. So this may not be you. You may be here for a retirement seminar and 5 years away from retirement. But if you know somebody, anybody around you that's working, who might need a step up, who might need this kind of education and opportunity, please let them know. This is on the website 24/7. You can always get to it. Another thing they have is the Financial Wellness Resource Program. That's a bunch of webinars that you can watch with professionals talking about, experts in what their field is. We all want that kind of information, and this is free. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a little bit about this plan in specific. That's what you're here for today, right? This plan. Um, First off, this plan is a 401A. And if I were writing things down at home, I would write down 401A as in apple. Okay? We're all pretty familiar with how 401ks work as far as retirement programs go, right? We hear about those all the time. You can do this with your 401k, you do this. This is not that. A 401a, that's the IRS coding for what type of retirement tax qualified plan this is. And what this is, just at the very heart of it, is a government pension, okay? A pension like you used to hear about back in the day, where you'd get a gold watch and the check every month for the rest of your life. That's a pension. That's what this is. Okay. So with that said, there are some very specific and almost a little stringent rules that apply to this type of retirement plan. Okay. We're going to go over these as much as we possibly can with you today. Everybody's always got questions that are there. If ask them if you want to. If we can't answer them, we will. Okay. So understanding that we have a 401a, what that is at the very basis is that we have money that comes out of our compensation, right? For our retirement plan. That's that 9.78%. And that goes from your paycheck pre-tax, meaning that contribution that you put in hasn't been taxed yet. Okay, so it goes into your retirement account, and there's some growth, hopefully, during that period. And then when the payments come to you in retirement, they will be taxed at that point in time. Okay, that's an important thing to just keep in mind when we talk about this plan. Anytime you receive funds to you, they're going to be taxed. So let's talk about that a little bit more. What we're going to move on to is RMDs. What an RMD is, essentially, is a required minimum distribution. And what it means is that you've been lucky enough that you haven't accessed funds from your retirement account up to a certain age. Okay, and this little table here on the slide is going to give you what your personal age is based on when you were born. Okay, so basically, if you haven't taken funds from your account by that certain age, they've been sitting there growing tax-free essentially, right? Well, the government says, hey, we're going to make you take a distribution because we want those taxes. Okay, so that's what it is. They're requiring you to take a distribution so that taxation can occur on that distribution. Okay, because it's been sitting there, making gains over a certain amount of time. Now, as you look at that table and those ages, the RMD ages, we can see from that and clearly, okay? I mean, my mom was a teacher. I've been around and in the inner workings of schools for my whole life. We all know that there is somebody at our school who is working, actively employed, way past this age, don't we? And I don't know if it's your, faithful lunch lady. I don't know if it's that great bus driver that just won't leave, but you know who they are, and they're working way, way past their RMD age. Okay? And you're saying, well, Heather, aren't they in trouble if they're, working past that age and maybe they haven't taken from their retirement account? Well, let me introduce you to the IRS's golden rule that applies to retirement accounts. You ready for it? This is one to remember because it's going to apply to everything we talk about. In order to take funds from a retirement account, you must cease employment. Okay? Now, it sounds like kind of a common sense thing, like you have to not be employed to actually take money to retire. Okay. Matt mentioned it before. Retirement's your new job. So you have to cease employment. You have to stop the old job. Okay. Now, that is not an us rule. That is an IRS rule, and it applies to literally a lot of retirement plans, all of them that I know of. Okay. So you have to cease employment to take funds out. So that really great person, that really dedicated person at your school that's working past their RMD age, if they're actively still employed, they can't take money from the retirement account. So they're fine. They're absolutely okay until they cease employment. And if that individual's working past their RMD age and then they stop working, it puts them on a bit of a fast track timeline to take their money from this account. Okay, it's nothing to be worried about. I mean, if you know the timelines on this, you're going to be absolutely fine. But sometimes that is the trick, isn't it? Knowing when. This is a it's an easy traverse thing for us because we do it all the time. But for most people, RMDs are pretty complicated. So we've tried our best to be helpful, and so we have a handout for that. The handout is in the chat. Make sure that you're clicking on those chat links that Alex has been putting up there. That's a lot of helpful materials. And of course, this is something we've prepared to help people be aware of RMDs and that timeline so you don't get in trouble. Because I have to tell you, the penalties on this one can be super harsh, okay? Particularly for our school plan members. If you fail to take your RMD on time, you can lose your opportunity to take your lifetime benefit under this plan. And that's something worth really, I'm going to say it again. If you fail to take your RMD on time, you could lose your opportunity to take a lifetime benefit under this plan. And we all know that with this plan, the benefit is the benefit. That's the whole deal. So if you got questions about RMDs, you can ask and we might be able to answer if you want. But do take a look at that handout. Take a read through it. We've prepared that to be as easily accessible as possible for people, okay? And that's just something to keep Most people, this is not even going to be an issue. Most people are going to take their retirement benefit way before their R&B ages and not have to worry about it. But with the penalties being as severe as they are, we do like to take some time and mention it. I know there's about 4 people on this call who may be anticipating that kind of thing coming up soon. But now let's talk about my favorite thing to talk about. Let's talk about the benefit options. I didn't always work for the retirement office, like I said. Before I worked here for 13 years, I worked in insurance. I worked in insurance, something called regulatory compliance. And what that meant was that I did legal investigations for the attorneys of certain insurance companies, where I went through people's policies and pointed out the loopholes that made it so we didn't have to pay claims. And I know that sounds icky, okay? Believe me, that's one of the reasons I got out. But at the same time, it really highlighted something to me that I need to highlight to everybody on this call today. People have stopped reading what they sign. So these investigations were fairly easy, and I was fairly good at it, okay? Uh, the retirement application is a financial contract, plain and simple. Okay, so it is your responsibility as a member of this plan to read that retirement application and understand it. Okay, and if you don't understand it, if there are places on there where there's a warning and you're like, I don't get that, don't put your signature on it until you do. Okay, Um, I care about the members of this plan, so I always stop and kind of highlight that. Because too many, we're inundated with like terms and contracts and agreements, blah, 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 and we click on whatever it is just to get it out of our face. Don't let this be a scenario like that. Read through that application, make sure you're comfortable with it when you sign it and put your name on it. Okay. Mainly because when you pick a benefit, when you pick an annuity, okay, an option that works for you, and you sign that and you establish an effective date, you are locked into whatever you chose. Okay, this is not something you get to go 2 months down the road and be like, I don't really like that. That's a contract. Okay, okay. Now that I'll stop using my mom voice so that we can continue here talking about the good part. I like to talk about the benefit payment options. One of these options is going to be the perfect option for you. I'm sure of it. Everybody here has a scenario that these fit into, and there's one that's going to work best for your life. Okay. But I'm not a financial planner. I put that out there as well. So I can't give you advice. I can't advise you which one is going to be best for you, mainly because there are a lot of factors that go into retirement planning that I don't know about you. I don't know your debt to income ratio. I don't know what your spending habits are, what your lifestyle is, the things that you have running in conjunction with this, the other types of money that would be coming in. I can't assess that, okay? But I got a lot of experience and I'm full of opinions. So I'm going to let you know some of the financial scenarios in which I see these options work the best, okay? And maybe that'll help you to make some better informed choices on it. Let's dig in. The first thing and the main takeaway that I want you to take away from this slide, are you ready for it? Every single option that's listed on this slide, every single one, is going to guarantee you, the member, a check every month for the rest of your life. Okay? Sounds pretty simple. Every single one that I'm going to go through will guarantee you, the member, a check every month for the rest of your life. Sometimes that's a harder concept for people to kind of get through their head than you'd think. So you're saying to yourself, well, Heather, if all of these are going to give me a check every month, what's different about them? Well, what's different is, will there be a death benefit paid and to who? That's it. Okay. So with that said, let's talk about the first option, because the first one is the easiest one, and I kind of love it because it's one of those things in life that is exactly what it says it is. And we don't have enough of those, in my opinion. But first of all, life only. It is a payment every month for your life only. So when you end, it ends. There is no death benefit payment under this option. Okay, it is only for your life, a payment for your lifetime. Okay, you don't even get to put a beneficiary down on the application if you choose this option. This is still a good option for people though. Like that sounds a bit harsh, but some people don't have a need for a death benefit under this retirement plan. If you're not carrying a lot of debt into retirement, if everything is paid off, you don't have a need for a death benefit. Okay. Another one on this option is the fact that because there is no death benefit payout, and this is kind of this is a wink wink secret here, the lower the probability that we're going to make a death payment, the higher the monthly amount's going to be. Okay. So life only with zero probability of a death benefit payout is almost always the highest monthly paying option. So the highest amount you can get monthly. Okay. Um, I've seen people really enjoy this option, and I know lots of them that have taken it. But it's up to you in assessing your financial big picture to see if this is what fits for you. Okay. Um, Sometimes we do have a scenario with life only that kind of plays out like this. Are you ready for it? So, let's just say we got a retiree and they've established their effective date. Now, hold up. Establishing an effective date is a very important thing. So I'm going to make this as simple as possible for you. You need to do 3 things to establish your effective date. You ready? Number 1, you need to be eligible and vested. Number 2, you need to terminate employment. And number 3, you get your completed application into NPERS. And I mean completed and correct application into NPERS. And once you have done those 3 things, the first of the month following that is your effective date. That's the date you want to get paid, your effective date. Okay? That's how you do it. It can be as simple as that. Okay? So we've done our 3 things, right? We're eligible and we're vested, and we ceased employment, so we had a termination date, and we've gotten our completed application into NPERS. First of the month following that, I picked my life only option on my retirement application, so I'm going to start getting payments. I'm excited about that. So I started to get my payments, and I go out to the road to get my second monthly benefit check. And you have to bear with me. I say I use checks in this story, but it's all direct deposit now. We all know that. So I'm by the mailbox. I'm gonna get my check out, and I'm excited because after that, I'm going to Joann's Fabric, and I'm gonna get about 5 piles of fat quarters, and I'm gonna finish that quilt that I've been working for 30 years on. Okay, it's an exciting day. So I'm excited about it. Maybe in my excitement, I kind of forget how close to the road that mailbox actually is. And so I'm not paying attention. Maybe I get hit by a, yeah, I've heard a lot of answers to this one. I like snow plows sometimes, but school bus works, and that's the one we use for the school seminars. That's no offense to any great bus drivers in the state of Nebraska. But anyway, you get taken down by a bus or a snowplow or whatever, you're done. You're toast. So is your annuity. Okay, it's done. Now, you might, I mean, in this scenario, I mean, when I established my effective date, maybe I had 30 years of service credit, and I put my whole amount into this life only annuity. I got 2 monthly checks, and I'm done. This does happen. Okay. Mainly because with retirement planning, What we're trying to do is simply make a guess about how long we're going to live and how much money we need to live that comfortably. Okay? But sometimes you guess wrong. Okay? This is all about probability. What you think's going to happen, trying to be prepared. Okay? That can occur. Sometimes people go, well, Heather, what happened to that money then? What happened to all that money they used to purchase this annuity where they got 2 payments and it was done? Well, let me tell you what happened to that money. When you establish your effective date and purchase an annuity, that money goes into a great big bucket, okay? With everybody's contributions and the employer match and all the investment returns, and it all goes in there. And that bucket is invested on behalf of the plan institutionally by the Nebraska Investment Council. Okay, which is kind of cool. They do a great, I'm not really allowed to have an opinion about it, but they do a great job. Okay, the plan is at 98% funded. Okay, because sometimes probability goes this way, sometimes probability goes this way, but the plan's funding is all based on actuaries looking into that bucket and seeing how much is there. And the reason that you care at all about this story is because plan funding is peace of mind for a member. Okay, that that makes it so that we don't have to have discussions about solvency like other retirement programs at this point in time. Okay, it's our ability to guarantee these promises that we make to you that we will pay you for as long as we say we're going to pay you. Okay, that's why you care. Okay, and what's in that bucket that that one person that only got 2 payments, that helps balance out that one person that's living 10 years past what they thought they were going to live. Um, but that's kind of how that works. And it's my a little thing where I tell you about the whole solvency thing. And I like to talk about that because this plan is solid. It's been solid for a long time and it's going to continue to be that way. I can say that pretty confidently. So that's life only. Okay. Now that scenario that I just laid out for you, where you get 2 payments, but you had 30 years of service credit, that bothers people. Okay. Some people are like, I can't have that happen to me. If that's you and that really does bother you, you might want to think about the next option we're going to talk about, which is the modified cash refund. Okay. Modified cash refund is pretty simple, but it guarantees that you get out of the plan at least what you put into it. Okay. Uh, what happens is you establish your effective date. Now tell me the 3 things that I told you to do that. Vested and eligible, terminate employment, get your completed application into NPERS. First of the month following that is your effective date. Okay. Now at that time, if you've picked the modified cash refund as your option, we take a look at your account balance. Now your account balance with this plan, most of the time, it doesn't matter. Um, this is the only point in time when it does, okay? Because we take a look at your account balance. We say, oh, you got this much in your account, okay? That's how much you're using essentially to purchase this option. And from there, you start a wonderful retirement. We hope you have a great one. You start receiving benefit payments. We keep track of that, okay? So when you pass away, what happens is we look at that initial amount, your account balance when you started, okay? And then we subtract from it what you've received in benefit payments. And if there's anything left, that's paid to your beneficiaries designated on file, okay? Let's do a numbers example. That one helps me to kind of really understand things. And in finance, numbers examples, they're pretty important. So let's say when I establish my effective date and I choose my modified cash refund option, I got $60,000 in my account. Okay. You're going to hear that one over and over. I use that one a lot as a reference. $60,000. Okay. And then I receive $10,000 in benefit payments. How much would go to my beneficiary designated on file if I passed away at that point? $50,000. $50,000. Great. I always assume that you guys yell it at the screen, or that you're awake enough and paying attention still. $50,000. That's what go to my beneficiary designated on file. And that's how that one works. Okay. Now, with that said, sometimes it plays out like this. I established my effective date. I got $60,000 in my account at that point, and then I start receiving benefit payments, and I receive $120,000 in benefit payments and pass away. Is there going to be anything to pay to my beneficiary designated on file? Nope, because I've overcome that initial amount that I had in my account. Okay. Now that can happen, but you still got $120,000 in benefit payments, so I don't feel too bad for you. In fact, I kind of hope that's how everybody's goes. But that can also occur, all right? Just so you know. Period, certain, and continuous is the next one we're going to talk about. And when you pick one of these options, you get to pick a year period. What you're picking is, and this is another one that is what it sounds like, okay? What you're picking is a certain period during which we'll pay the death benefit, okay? And you can pick 5, 10, or 15 years, okay? But don't think about this in terms of years, okay? I want you to think about this one in terms of monthly payments, okay? So how many monthly payments are in 5 years? 60. There are 60 monthly payments. That means there are 120 monthly payments in 10 years and 180 monthly payments in 15 years. Okay? But you pick that period when you establish your effective date, okay? And the minute you get your first monthly payment, that's when your certain period starts. Okay? And what happens is during that monthly payment period that you picked, if you pass away, the remaining monthly payments in that period go to your beneficiaries designated on file. Okay, so with our example, let's try a 5-year, 60 months. Okay, and let's say that I get 48 monthly payments in and pass away. How many monthly payments will be paid to my beneficiaries? 12. That last year of payments, so 12 monthly payments would go to them. And to get even deeper in the weeds on this one, let's say that my monthly benefit, me the member, I'm getting $900 a month. If I have 3 beneficiaries on file, then when I pass away, that's split between them. Okay, so each of my beneficiaries would get, if I had 3, $300 a month for the last 12 months of that period. Okay, that's how that one works. The other thing I want to remind you about, and I know plenty of people who have taken this option here, is in reference to a question that was in there. Somebody said that their estimates for 5-year to 15-year were vastly different, and I'm going to show you some sample numbers of that a little later. But I want to tell you once again why that is. It's pretty simple. As the probability that we'll have to make a death benefit payment increases, the monthly amount decreases. Okay, so we lengthen the period of time that we're going to have to make a death benefit payment, like let's say 15 years. That's going to be less per month than if we only have to make a death benefit payment for 5 years. Okay, okay. So let's remind you about the other part of this. I'm going to give you a little personal advice. Heather's full of great advice. Nobody takes it, but it's right there. If you go into retirement, go in with a goal. Would you please? Make some sort of goal. I don't care what it is. You know, just a goal, something you'd like to accomplish during the period of retirement. We get there, and I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people that get to retirement that think they're totally prepared and then have trouble adjusting because they've only ever worked. Okay, so they're not ready to. Make yourself a goal. Hey, I want to go on that fishing trip. Hey, I want to spend more time with my family. Hey, I would like to financially accomplish this in retirement. There's lots of things. I know an individual in particular who, when they started their retirement finances, their goal was the fact that they were going into retirement with a bit of debt still. Okay. In particular, this individual had 15 years left to pay on their mortgage. Okay. But they had a huge farm family, and it was important everybody have a place to live. So the goal was, when she set up her retirement, to make sure that the mortgage payment would be okay and covered for that last 15 years should she pass away. Okay, it was a good goal. It was a great goal. She ended up paying the house off herself, and she was pretty proud of that. If she could catch you, she'd tell you about it. Uh, but this person, after they paid that house off, after their 15-year certain period that they would get a death benefit was passed, they ended up living 13 years past that period. So receiving benefits for a total of 28 years. Um, the reason I get to tell you this story is that's my grandma. And when she passed away, she was 98. Let me tell you, I don't think she planned on living that long, although we all hope it was happy, right? Uh, that's the continuous part of this option that you really have to make sure you understand. Even if you're outside of that period during which a death benefit's going to be paid, you're still getting a monthly check every single month, because that's what I told you at the beginning of this. All of these options provide the member for a check for the rest of their lifetime. Okay, so don't get too wrapped up in the death benefit thing here. Remember, they will pay you a check every month for the rest of your life. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. And of course, everybody wants that retirement where we're going to super, my grandma called it the curse of longevity, just so you know. But it would be a great thing to be cursed with. And she did a lot of great planning. This was one of those things, and I'm glad that I get to talk about it. With modified cash and period certain and continuous, these two offer membership something we call beneficiary flexibility. Okay, that's going to be really important to some people. Other people are not going to care about it at all. What it is essentially is the ability to change your beneficiaries after you've started to receive payments. Okay, because maybe you have that Thanksgiving. You know the Thanksgiving I'm talking about. It's the Thanksgiving that makes you reach for that beneficiary change form. If it's important to you to be able to change your beneficiaries after you've started to receive payments, modified cash or a period certain and continuous option allow you to do that. Okay? So, another thing beneficiary flexibility offers you is the ability to um, have multiple beneficiaries. Let's say that you want your beneficiaries to be your 3 favorite nieces and nephews, or your 10 favorite grandchildren, or your 20 favorite, people that you know. In order to have multiple beneficiaries, you need beneficiary flexibility. Another thing that beneficiary flexibility offers you is the ability to have an entity as a beneficiary. So let's say that you have a particularly important church or a charity that's really dear to your heart that you would like to receive money from this. In order to have them on as a beneficiary, you need beneficiary flexibility. Modified cash refund or a period certain and continuous option offers that. You're going to say, look, life only doesn't. Why not, guys? Because you don't get a beneficiary with the life only. Okay. I also mentioned this at this point in time in the program because the next two options that we're going to talk about limit you to one beneficiary, and that's it. It's not even a beneficiary that gets to be changed. One. So If these things concerning beneficiary flexibility are important to you, modified cash or period certain and continuous are going to be the options you want to review. Okay. So the next thing, we're going to talk about joint survivor. Okay. So joint and survivor, this is one that ties you in when you establish your effective date with one beneficiary. Who do you think that beneficiary might be for this option, guys? It's your spouse. That's right. More importantly, it's the spouse that you're married to at the time you establish your effective date. And you know, if I say it like that, it's important. Okay? With this one, if your spouse predeceases you, meaning dies before you, the member, there is no beneficiary. You don't even get to add a new one on if you get remarried later. Okay, there's a really important reason for this, and it's kind of tied up in how this option works. Okay, with this, you get to pick, when you pick this option, 50%, 75%, or 100%. That is the amount of your member benefit that would be paid to your spouse when you pass away for the rest of that spouse's lifetime. Okay, so numbers example makes this one real clear. I'm the member. I have a joint survivor option on this. I'm getting $1,000 a month. Hooray. I pass away. If I have a 75% joint and survivor option, that means my spouse, my husband's going to get $750 a month for the rest of his lifetime. Okay? Now, with that said, a lot of things go into the calculation of an annuity benefit. With the joint and survivor option, and with the next one we're going to talk about, your spouse's age, even in relation to you, and mortality tables are used when we calculate that benefit. Okay, because not only are we trying to make guesses about how long you're going to live that we're going to have to pay you, we're making calculations about how long your spouse is going to live and how long we'll have to pay them. Okay, that's why this one is one beneficiary and that's it. And even if they predecease you, you don't get to put a new beneficiary on. Okay, it's going to function essentially as just a payment that's still going to pay you for the rest of your life. Okay, but then there would be no death benefit, essentially. Okay, and you're saying to yourself, well, Heather, what about divorce, which is very prevalent at this point in time too. Even if you get divorced, you don't get to add a new spouse on. Okay. However, there are things that can be said about this option being a great option. A lot of the time when we do estate planning and stuff like that, we think, oh, we've got to leave money for the kids. We have to make sure there's money for the kids. And sometimes that spouse that we leave behind when we pass away, maybe they're far, far too old to, get back into the workforce or to live without the kind of money that was brought in by that other spouse. Um, this is a good way to just make sure that your spouse is, not spousally impoverished and can kind of be all right should you pass away. But there's a lot of different things to be said about this one. It's a good option if you are looking for a way to take care of that spouse, okay, with a monthly benefit. So with the next one we're going to talk about, the non-spousal joint and survivor option. With the non-spousal, you get to pick one beneficiary, but there's only one percentage that's associated with this one, okay? It's 50%. So if we did our number example, it would be $1,000 that I'm getting. I pass away, then my beneficiary would be receiving 50% of that amount. So they would get $500 for the rest of their lifetime. You don't get to pick the percentage, but you do get to pick who that one beneficiary is. And it can be anybody. I mean, the criteria for this one's pretty wide open. It needs to be, you ready for it? One living human being. One living human being. And the reason that I say it that way is because it cannot be a trust. Okay? One living human being. I told you sometimes there's scenarios in which options work best or better for things. I have seen the non-spousal joint and survivor option been used in special needs planning a lot. Let's say we have a beneficiary who may be receiving uh, government aid, life-giving government aid. And they have been, and you're trying to make a plan for them should something happen to you. Okay. We don't want our death benefits or things that we leave behind financially for people to become a burden. But it's very hard for us to kind of put ourselves in that mindset, in that future place. Okay, what's going to be happening at that point in time? And I have seen very well-intentioned people leave money to people who might be receiving this government aid, that special type of thing, and that death benefit kicks them off that aid. Okay, and then it's very difficult, and there's a lot of paperwork and all this other stuff. If you're doing that kind of financial planning, take a look at this option. Might work, might not. We'll see, but it's something I always suggest, just in case. I've seen it used as a great tool to make sure that your loved ones left behind are going to be okay with what they receive. So 50%, maybe not the worst percent. Same thing goes with the joint survivor. I've uh, I heard conversation during an in-person seminar one time. Some ladies were sitting up front and they were talking about somebody they knew who was a spouse of a plan member who had passed away recently. And the lady was telling the other lady that the husband was doing okay. They had a joint survivor for 50%. And I was kind of surprised the other lady, once she heard it was 50%, she was like, oh my gosh, didn't didn't she love him? You know, I'm going to tell you just straight up, I finance has very little to do with love sometimes. But you know, the other one piped right up and said, "Oh no, no, it's not about that. I mean, you have to kind of also consider that she doesn't have or he doesn't have her expense at the same time." And this needs to be put very delicately. When we talk about death, it's kind of a weird issue for some people. But yeah, if your spouse has passed away, you don't have the expense of said spouse. Okay, you're not buying medications, you're not paying for that second car. Maybe you're going into a downsized home. It maybe 50% is okay. Okay, and we have to kind of consider that that could be a good option for someone. All right. That is the beneficiary payment options. I hope that, you know, this has kind of been something you can look at and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. We ran our benefit estimator. Why? Because we love running our benefit estimator, and so should you. The benefit estimator is a fantastic tool. Um, we use some numbers here, but I want to show you some of these examples. Now, people get real attached to these examples for some reason, okay? Your personal numbers are far more important than these numbers you're going to see up on the slide, okay? So you should be going and getting your own numbers from our website. You don't even have to log in to use that estimator. Literally, Joe Schmo off the street can get that on our website and use it. So you should too. With these benefit samples that we've done, we used a tier 1 member, okay? So then we got that 3 average highest salary boxes. We put $35,000 in there 3 times, okay? So then we ran it for what we call normal retirement age. Normal retirement age in your plan is 65, right? Yes. So we gave that person 20 years of service credit. And you can kind of see in that first column exactly what that looks like. These numbers are monthly amounts. What they give you in the benefit estimator are monthly amounts. And then, of course, we use $60,000 as our account balance. The only time it matters is for modified cash. So if you're sure you're not taking the modified cash refund option, you don't even have to put that in there, okay? But there you go, $60,000. You can see reflected, yep, life only is the highest one, but modified cash isn't far behind. I had somebody run up to me with their estimates in their hand that said, "Hey, Heather, my modified cash is only about $12 off from my life only option. Why wouldn't I take that?" I don't know. I don't get to make your financial choices for you. Sure, in my opinion, I'd like to have a death benefit for a while. But if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. Maybe you need that 12 bucks every month more. Up to you. Okay. You can also see reflected here that probability of a death benefit payment. See how the 15 years, a little bit less than the 5-year? Somebody said there was a big difference in their 5 to 15 year. I can't speak to exactly why there would be a huge amount of difference, but I can tell you it's because of this, because of that probability of a death benefit payment with the lengthened time period. Same thing goes for if we're going to pay your spouse 100% of your benefit when you pass away for the rest of their life, as opposed to if we're going to pay your spouse 50% of your benefit. And these are your amounts. These are member amounts. So if you want to know what that 50% would be, you take half that. You want to know what 75% would be? 3/4 of that. Okay. I'm also going to tell you age matters, because if you look at that non-spousal down there, we ran that for a beneficiary who was 20 years younger than us. That affects this. Okay, so age of your spouse with JNS or non-JNS, that affects it. Okay, because the younger person is, their mortality tables are going to be way different than yours, aren't they? So the next column says reduced, because we did it for somebody who was age 60 with 20 years of service. So this is somebody who's taken their benefit early. Okay, now remember, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because when person who is age 65 takes their benefit, you will have been getting a benefit for 6 years or 5 years. But at the same time, yes, that affects it. You're seeing the brunt of a 15% reduction because they took that benefit at age 60. That benefit, by the way, is not prorated. So if you're like 64 and 11 months and you take your benefit right then, you would still have a 3% reduction that was assessed on your benefit that didn't go away. So sometimes we're like, hey, can you hold out for just a little longer? We want to pay you, of course, but we want to pay you as much as possible. So there you go. But another thing that has to be mentioned, seems like common sense, but sometimes people just don't even, is the fact that you don't have to take your benefit the minute you quit. Okay? So you terminate employment. You're around age 60. You don't have to take your benefit right then if you don't want to. You could work someplace else. I mean, go, work at Dairy Queen or the, insurance office I vacated, whatever you want to do, and then claim your benefit when you're 65. We care about the age that you are when you try and take your money. So it doesn't matter to us that you terminated 5 years ago. It matters to us the age you are when you take your benefit. Okay, so that's the reduction, but it's not always a bad thing. Some people need that money, and that's fine. The last one's rule of 85, guys. Okay, somebody who meets rule of 85. And you can see those numbers in that column. That's a lot more monthly, isn't it? Dang. Is that because that person reached the rule of 85? Well, yes and no. Okay, yes, because what we're looking at here is 30 years of service credit. And no, because Rule of 85 was only ever really giving someone early access to an unreduced benefit. That's what it is. So that 10 extra years of service credit that you're seeing in that third column as opposed to the other two, That makes quite a bit of difference. That's why we tell you to always look at your annual statements, because what's showing on your annual statement is what we see for your service credit. So if that's wrong, you need to call us now, not when you start your application and go, well, this might not be. If you don't think that's appropriate on your annual statement, you call us, okay? So that we can get this started before you file an application for retirement. With that said, those are the benefit options. I'm going to give everybody a 10-minute break so you can move around, do your stuff. We're going to come back after that, okay? When we come back, we're going to answer some questions and then finish up the program, okay? So if you have questions about stuff that we just went over, put them in the Q&A box. I'm going to turn off my mic and my camera, but we'll be back at it's 11, so make it 11:12, 11:12, and we'll be back then, okay? Okay, welcome back from break. Hopefully everybody is still here and still awake. That would be great. But I'll only ask for one out of the two. Um, we did get some great questions today, and Alex and Matt have been answering those as I've been talking, but there's a couple that we like to kind of address. Someone asked us to go over revisiting the delay of benefits thing that I just mentioned. So I'm going to mention this again. We care how old you are when you take your benefit. Okay. So, number one, if you meet the rule of 85, you can get an unreduced benefit. You can take your benefit then. If you're age 65, you are getting an unreduced benefit. Take your benefit. They're not, and don't conflate the two where you have to be, a certain age and a certain, if you meet one, if you're age 65, that's normal retirement. You can take your benefit then. If you meet rule of 85, unreduced benefit, you can take your benefit then. Okay. Now, with the reduction, though, there's nothing that says we're going to force your money out of this plan. We're not that type of plan. You can defer or simply leave your funds here. Now, if you've gone to another state to work or something like that, or if you work privately, that's absolutely fine. Your money is still here and it's still safe. And a reduction is based on when you take it. So, we have somebody who says, am I 65? I don't work in the state of Nebraska. You're going to get an unreduced benefit when you apply. Make sure you run your estimates so that you know what you're in for as far as what the monthly amounts are going to be. Okay. Um, somebody who says they've reached the rule of 85, does delaying significantly increase your monthly benefit? Well, if you're not building service credit, okay, so if you're not like working for that school or working for a school that's in the plan, you're not building that service credit. Um, so once you've hit that place, then maybe not. It depends, okay? Everybody's scenario is different, and significantly is a very subjective word, okay? So run your own estimates, see what that looks like. The age reduction is in the estimator. Okay, so that they ask for your date of birth and when your date of termination is, blah, blah, blah. That should be able to give you some kind of idea on this. Okay, if it's going to change year to year or what. But for the most part, if you're not increasing your service credit, if you are facing an age reduction, yes, you can wait, take your benefit until you get an unreduced benefit at 65. That might be worth it to you. But always make sure that you've run the estimates for both scenarios. There's a lot of people that are like, oh no, I have to wait, who are literally doing it for just not a huge amount of money. And they're losing money on the fact that they haven't made any of these comparisons, year to year comparisons about when to take it by not taking their benefit, like hundreds of dollars. Um, so it's just very important. We are working on a handout right now about this very issue, about when people should take it, to give kind of examples and things like that. But it's a good question, and uh, it's very much kind of a personal decision. Okay, but there you go. Speaking of personal decisions, all of these options that we went over, like I said, there's going to be one for you. One of these fits your life perfect. I just know it. Okay. I'm that confident about these. But there's a lot of things that you have to take into context when you pick. Okay. Some of that can be your family health history, which can, I mean, it's a good, nice way of saying mortality tables for you. Or what your household income is at this point, how much debt you're taking in, how much you're paying off, things like that. Another thing that we don't really consider, but I like to mention, what's that lifestyle that you want in retirement? Because there are some people that are like, you know what, I'm done with this Nebraska winter. I am snowbirding it from now on. Getting a house in Arizona, I'll have one here, come back for games. You know, if you want to do that, that's great, but you have to have the funds to do that. So always consider what kind of lifestyle is. Do you think that retirees' entertainment budgets go down when they hit retirement? Well, the answer is no, because you're finally doing that stuff. You finally have time. You're going to go to the movies with your spouse in the middle of the day. You're going to go to the cafe and hang out with your buddies. You're going to have coffee. It's entertainment budgets statistically in retirement go way up. Just make sure you're ready to have that fun. You're ready to do that. Okay. Um, Assessing your big picture takes a lot of work because retirement doesn't happen in a vacuum. Okay. We're just one small piece of all your financial plans. Okay. And this is where I talk about financial planners. All right. I know a lot of great financial planners that are worth every penny that you pay them. And I know some pretty shady financial planners. Okay. The difference there is just being a fiduciary for you. Okay. Because certainly it takes assessment of your personal finances. Like, I want you to get out that folder. You know that folder that you keep in the a desk drawer that's got all of the important paperwork in it that you never look at? Assess your insurance needs. Do you have life insurance? Do you need life insurance? I want you to, do you have an estate plan? The more work that we do now, the less work that our loved ones end up doing when we pass away. Because honestly, there is no worse time for people to be making financial decisions than when they're dealing with grief and death. I've seen it go so wrong in so many ways. Um, you have to look at that, okay? You have to look at your budgeting. You have to look at how far away from retirement are you? You have to look, do you have income from investments that you have to look at as well? Sometimes a financial planner can be absolutely the best way to go with this, okay? But in this day and age, I have to caution people that you really have to vet that individual that you're paying, and you have to make sure that you understand you are paying them. Okay? Nothing will drain a retirement account faster than not understanding the fees that are assessed on it. Okay? And now you're looking across the screen and going, well, what are your fees, Heather? Well, I'm glad you asked. Most of the fees that we have are actually put forth really clearly. We're a government agency, okay? So we're as transparent as we possibly can be about this. And our fees are low. We're a nonprofit. I don't make a dollar either way, whether you decide to take your benefit or cash out your plan, okay? Make sure that your financial advisor is being honest with you and read everything before you sign it. Most financial planners, by the way, are going to try and get you to an 80 to 85% income replacement, salary income replacement in retirement. They say that what you're making right now in retirement, you should be able to live on 80% of that. Okay? It's not a bad assessment. Um, in that attitude, we do try to help. So I'm going to tell you up front, Social Security. Social Security was only ever designed to replace approximately 35 to 40% of your income. Okay? It was never designed to be the only source of retirement income people were living on, ever. Okay? So 35 to 40%. If I know that's what Social Security is going to take care of for me, we made a little salary replacement chart so that if you know your years of creditable service, you can make a guess at how much this plan will replace. Okay? So if I know, let's say that Social Security for me is going to replace 40% on the high end. Okay? And then let's say that I got 20 years of service. Let's see, I look at my table. Hey, that's another 40%. So I should be 80% taken care of. I should already be at that 80%. Well, good for me. But I know that there are several people on the other side of this screen that looked at this chart and started to sweat a little bit. Maybe they're not as prepared for retirement as they thought. This is supposed to just give you an idea, okay? Social Security will also give you estimates, by the way. Um, if you want to get on the My Social Security account, get your personal estimates, you should. Because the one thing that you cannot do financial planning without is numbers, your personal numbers. Okay, so make sure you're getting them. We offer you that great estimator. We now offer you a great tax estimator. Get your numbers. Okay, so for those people who don't maybe have as much service credit as they'd like, who maybe aren't as close to that 80% as the example that I just gave. Most schools are going to have something called a 403B. Okay, 403B as in boy. A 403B is a tax qualified account, so it's another one you can put pre-tax funds into that has pretty high contribution limits. Now, NPERS does not administer any kind of 403B. However, 403Bs are pretty unique. They're only offered to like schools and nonprofits. So if you want to be involved in a 403B, which who knows, maybe you need a place to squirrel away some retirement funds and you're getting real close and you're not quite sure exactly where or how, you go to your payroll and you say, who takes care of our 403B? And then you, most of the time, they're from the community. So you can go to them and set up your 403B. The contribution max this year on that one, if you qualify for the catch-up provisions, is $30,500. That's $30,500 pre-tax that you can put away in that account for retirement. It's a good thing to kind of run in conjunction with your plan. You guys are lucky in the fact that you have a pension plan to run in conjunction with Social Security. There's a large percentage of Americans right now that are only living on Social Security, and that's all they got. So if you're trying to do some prep work, if you're getting there, you're not quite where you'd like to be, maybe a 403B be something you could consider. Okay, that's what we do in these seminars. We have you consider things. We offer you as many options as we can. Okay, so that is when we talk about salary replacement. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about suspension of benefits. It's a very big, scary slide. But what this one boils down to really easily is, hey, would you keep your address current with us? And you're like, what? Now, my mom was receiving a benefit from this plan for a long time. So I'll tell you, she moved and I said, Mom, you need to update your address with work. And she says, oh, honey, I don't need to do that. I get my benefit directly deposited. And I said, Mom, how are you going to get your taxes at the end of the year? How do you get your 1099? She says, oh, I forgot about that. Don't forget about it. We're not one of those agencies that's going to be constantly on your back and like calling you and trying to bother you all the time. However, we will send you letters occasionally when something is like your COLA. Your COLA gets updated every year. So we send you a letter. If you don't give us a good address, that letter comes right back to us. Okay, it's a waste. And then we go, well, I wonder if they're okay. And so if we get like 2 pieces of undeliverable return mail, because your address is not current on file with what we've got, we will suspend your benefit. There's a very simple reason for that. It's a lot easier for us to restart a benefit than it is to get money back from someone who's deceased. Okay, so it's important. Please, if you move, keep your address up to date with us. If you do have this happen, all it takes is a little letter that says, this is my new address, and you sign it, and we restore your benefits. Okay? But don't just think that because you're getting a monthly check put into your account every month, that the bank's going to let us know what you're at. They don't. Yeah? Okay. This is this year's hot button issue. You know what? The fun thing is, this has been the hot button issue for literally probably 10 years. Let's talk about reemployment. Okay, so first of all, when I say reemployment, I'm going to go back and I'm going to remind you of the IRS's golden rule. What was it, guys? You have to be terminated. You must cease employment to take funds from a retirement account. Now remember, that's not us. That's the IRS's rule. Okay? So when people talk to me about the fact that they don't like this rule, and believe me, they talk to me a lot about it, it is essentially like complaining to the police that you don't like the law. Okay? I'm here to tell you about it so that you don't get in trouble. That's what I want more than anything. And when I talk about reemployment, I have to say there's a couple caveats. What I'm talking about is when someone ceases employment, tries to take their benefit, and then comes directly back to work. Okay, because the IRS gets really persnickety about this. They have a definition of what a bona fide termination from service is, and that is that you have a break in service for a minimum of 180 calendar days. Okay, that's to prove that you're not working in there anymore. Uh, and that's at any participating employer in the plan. So we all know the Nebraska school plan. That encompasses all the Nebraska schools. What it does not encompass, you ready? We don't care if you terminate, take your benefit, and go work for a private employer like Target or Walmart or Starbucks or Dairy Queen or wherever you want to go. Okay? Private employer, that's not part of this. Parochial schools. We don't care about those. They don't participate in this retirement plan. OPS, or a school in a different state. We don't care about those. What we're talking about is employers in the Nebraska that participate in the Nebraska school retirement plan. Okay? Okay. And I don't think anybody remembers exactly when this started out, it's stringent, okay? However, most people don't remember how stringent it is. Um, and so we were like, okay, we need to help. We hear all the time, we need to help. This 180 calendar day break, this applied to paid service, voluntary service, part-time, temporary, seasonal service. It applied to everything, okay? But the Nebraska schools are suffering. Anybody who works there can kind of tell we need people, okay? And people who know what they're doing, and we need them now, yesterday. So they came up with something. Now we have a state statute, it's the substitute or voluntary service exception. This is a big one. This is for subbing or volunteering during the 180 days, that 180-day break. And I'm also going to stop here a minute and talk about date of termination. Okay, termination date is the last day that you could be required to render service under your contract. Contracts are supposed to have start and end dates. Okay, so the last day that you could be required to render service under that contract if you're contracted. Okay, if you're not contracted, then most of the time, rule of thumb, it's that last physical day of work. Okay, but that's important to know. That's your termination date. And once you hit your termination date, you have 180 days from there to relax. And I would really hope people do. But you get bored. You get bored during your 180 days. You can provide service to that school on an intermittent basis. Okay. And the IRS never clarified what intermittent basis was for a long time. This state statute does. And we were ecstatic about it because this definition is way broader than it used to be, guys. With intermittent basis, now that's 8 days per calendar month of the 180 days that you can provide subbing or voluntary service. 8 days every single month of that 180-day period. That's not bad. That's like 48 days. Now, there can't be a pre-arrangement to do that, and we're going to talk about pre-arrangements return to service in a minute here. This statute also further defined what day of service means. Okay, so that's any length of time, essentially. It could be that you went into the school for 5 minutes and picked up the phone and answered a call. Okay, or it could be that you provided an entire 8-hour day of subbing. Same, that's counts as one, yeah? And when people decide to go back during the 180 days and do this, which that's very nice of you, thank you. I always tell you, mark your calendar. Yeah, we all got a calendar hanging around the house. Mark the day that you did it so that you know you're not going over the 8 days. This is real important because we're going to get into it a little bit more. But there are people who are under investigation for violations of this right now as we speak. And the CYA of simply putting an X on your calendar so that you know, hey, I provided a 7-day here, a 7-day here, enables you to be able to say no. No, I'm not going to violate the rules by doing 9 days, 10 days. And that's important, okay? We don't want anybody to get in trouble because some of these consequences are big that we're going to get into. But with this service, voluntary subbing and voluntary service exception, there are some things you can't do. They're pretty common sense what we listed here, but we've been talking about this for a while, okay? So I'm just going to lay them out. Things you can't do. You cannot combine your subbing and volunteering days, okay? That's total of 16 days in a month. You can't do 8 days at one school and 8 days at a second school during that same month. And the example I use for this one is a local. Like I lived out by Broken Bow, so you can't do 8 subbing days at Broken Bow within the month of, September, and then drive down the road and do 8 days at Anselmo Myrna during the same month, okay? Or Sargent or Ansley. You can't. That's 16. You cannot agree to train your replacement, and this one usually gets the administrators pretty riled up. Um, Prearranged return to service or any verbal or written agreements to like either circumvent the 180 days or to just plain not pay attention to them. Okay. And you can't do that. This is not us. This is the IRS, guys. Okay. Now, this is usually when people pick up their screens and shake them. But refereeing, officiating, and coaching are all considered regular employment. So they aren't part of this 8-day exception, okay? Regular employment. So actually, I've had a referee this last season that came up to me and was like, "Oh, good, Heather, you gave me the great reason to say no to them." Yes, I know, I don't want to break the law. Prearranged return to service. Like I said, verbal or written agreement on this one to, either, come back during or violate or go around this agreement. It's an agreement. The same thing happens on the part of the employer where they're like, hey, you know what? We can't find people to drive a bus, so we'll hold that position for you. That is, no, you can't do that. Okay? So, it's a big deal. The big deal on this one, you guys, if this is found, and it very much gets found, let me tell you, um, that you haven't had a bona fide termination from service, and you violate the IRS's one golden rule for retirement plans, your benefits are due back immediately, okay? As a lump sum, plus interest, and they become an IRS tax debt, which you can't get out from under. Okay, even if you file bankruptcy. I don't like to see this happening. There's a lot of people who are getting in trouble and then going, well, the school said. The school is not standing there beside you when you have to pay this back. Okay? Plain and simple. I have seen investigations for this range from $250,000 due back to us, and that's on the low end, to something like $760,000 due back to us. This ruins people's lives. Do not violate this. Okay. There's a lot of people that will come up and ask me, is this okay? Is this okay? I'm going to tell you, I lean towards the side of no. Just take the 180 days. Go rest for a little while. If you get bored after that, sure, come back. Don't prearrange to come back, but it happens. Okay. And it happens a lot. Let's say you terminate employment, you take your benefit, you start your retirement, and you're fishing in that lake and you're fishing it every weekend. Okay. Maybe you overfish it and there's nothing in there but catfish anymore. And you think, you know what? I'd like to go back and drive that bus again. Okay. All right. Go back. It's after your 180 days. You go in as a new member. You get to start a new Tier 4 account. Your benefits simply continue. Okay? There are ways to do this. And the 8-day thing, I got to tell you, we were super excited because we thought that would be totally helpful. And I'm not even joking about that. Everybody in the office was ecstatic that we got a definition for that and that it was so many days. Because we're as concerned about the Nebraska schools as you are. And so this is a big deal, okay? And I speak pretty seriously about reemployment because I care about this, okay? Now, if you have questions about a scenario and whether it might be okay or might not be okay, please give us a call. We've worked with a ton of people on this one. We had somebody who called from Teammates, which is a great volunteering organization. And they said, you know what, we're having a problem. I'm having a problem with my schedule. I see one kid after school every night for 5 nights for an hour. And I don't know how I'm going to work that with these 8 days once I retire. Oh, well, so we thought about it. We're like, okay, can you move them to Tuesdays and Thursdays and divide up your hours that way so that you have one day on Tuesday and one day on Thursday? See 2 kids on Thursday or Tuesday and 3 kids on Thursday. Well, okay. Yeah, that's 8 days. I could do that. We want to keep people doing these great jobs that they're doing, helping the kids. That's important. Okay. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you, when one person violates this, it pulls the whole plan out of compliance, okay, with what the IRS has told us, out of compliance. What can happen if they find us out of compliance is that the plan as a whole can lose its tax qualified status. So not only would that person have ruined their retirement, they ruined everybody's retirement. Don't let that be you, okay? If you have questions about it, please give a call. But this is something that is just becoming more and more and more prevalent. So make sure that you're marking on your calendar your days so you don't go over, but absolutely keep providing that great kind of service that you provide. So there you go. Let's talk about the only thing that's more fun than reemployment. That's right, it's death. I pause for laughter there. Uh, And this is death before retirement. So before you've established an effective date, essentially right now, okay? Your spouse, if you have them listed as a sole primary beneficiary, has some pretty wonderful benefits. And so if you like them even a little bit, you might want to consider having them as the only or sole primary beneficiary. Because if you do, then they, depending on how much service credit you've got and your age, have access to certain things. So you got 20 years of service, age 65, they're eligible to take an annuity. Hey, that's providing them a lifetime payment. You got 5 to 20 years of service, they can take an annuity, like the benefit under this plan, or they can take a refund of the plan plus 101%. Now, that 101%, oddly, it's the same percentage as what the employer matches. So people go, and they get the employer match. Technically, it's a different thing. It's just the same percentage. But yes, there you go. They have to be listed as your sole primary beneficiary in order to have access to these. So when I say sole, I don't mean that you have your spouse on there and then your one child. And you have them divided up, like 25% to the kid and 75% to your spouse. If it's listed that way, your spouse does not have access to these annuity options. They must be the only primary beneficiary that you have listed. Okay? So in that scenario, I would probably move my child to be a contingent beneficiary so that my spouse could have access to these benefits if they, survive me. Okay? Um, If you have a non-spousal beneficiary or you have less than 5 years of service credit, then whoever your beneficiary is, they get a lump sum payment of your contributions and interest. That's it. So, like I said, if you like your spouse even a little bit, you might want to consider this one. Alex has been kind enough to put the beneficiary change form right there in the chat for you. So if you need to fill that out, and really, I have people, if I give them advice about stuff, assess their beneficiary needs about every 3 to 5 years, because you might not have changed, but I can darn well tell you other people's lives have changed. Their marriages and deaths and births and all this stuff. Um, please make sure these are up to date. And you're like, Heather, how? Where do I check? Well, I'm glad you asked. You can check by simply taking a look at your annual statement. Okay, we fought pretty hard to get your beneficiaries listed on that annual statement that you get every year. Okay, so if you don't see beneficiaries listed on there, I'm going to tell you, a lot of people just tend to forget. This can be one of the biggest accounts that they have upon their passing. And a lot of time people will just forget to put beneficiaries on this, or they put them on when they started employment, 30 years ago, and forget. I've paid out death claims. So I've seen this happen just so much. And I've told you that one of the worst times that people can make financial decisions is when they're grieving. So, don't let this be your family or your account. So you look at your annual statement, you see who your beneficiaries are. If you don't see anybody on there, it could mean your beneficiary listing is over 15 years old. And if that's true, it's about time for you to fill out a new one. Okay? Now, these are notarized as kind of a low-tech fraud deterrent. Seems kind of ridiculous, I know, at this point in time to still require a paper form with a notary, which is kind of inconvenient, but that makes sure that it's you. That notary is supposed to make sure that whoever's signing that is you. Okay? That's why we do it. Because we want to make sure this goes to who you want it to go to when you pass away. Okay? Good time to re-up those forms is now. But you can do it when you retire as well, and you pick that option, send in your completed application, particularly if you pick an option that's got beneficiary flexibility, like modified cash or the period certain and continuous options. Okay? Mm, You could also have a trust listed as a beneficiary. If you do that, hey, I ask maybe put down the trustee's phone number or some contact information, uh, just to make sure that we can get a hold of them, particularly if when it's one of those testamentary trusts, that springing trust from your will. Um, we would love to be able to contact people to pay, okay? When you're doing a trust, we always cut one check to that trust. I had somebody who was under the impression that what we were going to do was take our money and pay it as they had laid out in the trust. That's not our bag. We pay a check to the trust, and then the trustee you have set up within that trust pays it out how you said you wanted it. Okay? That's how that works. This is our beneficiary designation form. You can see over here on the right-hand side up in the top there's a plan type box. You may be a member of more than one plan that NPERS administers. That happens. I'm a member of two of those, the state plan and the DCP. So if I want my beneficiaries on this form to apply to both of those plans, then all I have to do is check those two boxes. Okay? You can see this primary beneficiary box. You can put primary beneficiaries in those. Just remember at the end there's a percentage line. That percentage or the number of percentages on there need to total 100% of your account. Same goes if you put people in the contingent beneficiaries box. That your contingents need to total 100%. Contingent beneficiaries, most of the time, they don't see a lot of payments happening to them because most of the time you have multiple primary beneficiaries. If you do that, just make sure that, I mean, in order for contingent beneficiaries to actually see payment, all your primary beneficiaries must be deceased. Okay, so you have 3 primary beneficiaries, one passes away, we're still going to pay the 2 beneficiaries to get on file. Okay. So that's important to note. Also, that 100%, you can see that 0.00 in the margin there. That is a kind of a running tally. When you use the fillable fields online, it helps you get to 100%. So you notice there's 5 lines there. What happens if you have 6 children? You're going to have to pull one to the side. I'm afraid you just didn't make the cut this year, Jennifer. We all saw that dance recital. No, we've got you covered. The second page here, you can list primary beneficiaries until your heart is content. Just make sure that all the percentages add up to 100%. That's all we ask. Okay? So that's beneficiary designations. We're going to talk about health insurance for 1 minute here, and then that will be it. I'm also going to tell you this is probably the briefest discussion you've ever had about health insurance, and that is because NPERS does not administer any kind of health insurance. We don't. If you call here and you say, Heather, I want to talk about health insurance, you're going to hear about 5 minutes of radio silence and then a very soft click as I put the phone down. We don't administer any of this, so I can't really give you my opinions on it. But like I said, we talk about options here, right? So here's some options. If you're retiring early, let's say you meet the rule of 85, so from age, like 50-ish to 65, there is a direct bill plan that's offered by Educators Health Alliance and Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now you pay for that yourself, all the premiums, that's you. But it is an option as far as health insurance goes. And I'm going to tell you, it's an option I don't get to talk about with other plans. Okay, so the fact that you have more than that, that's great. If you think this might be something you need to look into, the website is listed on that slide right there. They do about a 30-minute video presentation, kind of about what that entails and accessing it. So if you're interested, please take a watch through. I usually watch it at least once a year, even though I have no access to it, just so I know if it's still good. The next one we're going to talk about is the Affordable Care Act. With this one, it has a question mark on it. It's had a question mark on it for 10 years since it started. If you want to search through the ACA options and what might be available to you, a lot of those income contingent. So I'm going to tell you there are some options that are very good. Some may be very expensive. But when you look at it, you type into your Google search bar ACA Care, Nebraska Exchanges, and it'll come up with this thing. You put in like 3 pieces of information, and it's going to come up with all of what is available to you. Um, I I don't know. I know people who are current retirees who are on ACA coverage. They really like it, and for some of them, it's zero premium, so they don't pay too much for it. But it's pretty good. They said it's good. I guess. I don't know if it's right for you. You have to research that. Okay. The last one we're going to talk about is for people who are getting to age 65, and that one's Medicare. The Medicare landscape can be a very interesting kind of minefield of things that you have to pay attention to. We all know this. Um, we work with another state agency. It's called SHIP, State Health Insurance Program, and they're under the Department of Insurance. They're a great office full of wonderful people who help with Medicare enrollment and can kind of they do presentations. They have volunteers. SHIP comes out when we do in-person seminars and talks for an hour to get people kind of associated with Medicare and their timelines. If you are considering that, I would give their office a call, or at least take a look at their video that's on our website, which is npers.ne.gov. That website is just so valuable. I can't say enough good things about it. But we got videos all over the place. One of the videos is about Medicare. Okay, it says, Welcome to Medicare. It's also got the contact information on it for SHIP. So if you need to call them, if you need to set up an appointment or know what they offer, there it is. Okay. Medicare is confusing. It super is. My mom was like, Heather, I need to get on Medicare. Will you help me? And I was like, no, no, I won't. I'm smart enough to know exactly, where my expertise stops. But I did contact SHIP with her, and she went every single year to have them look at her drug plan, her Part D. And the drug plan is very important to her because she was an insulin-dependent diabetic. Okay, so you have to make sure that your drug plan and your drugs that you're on are covered by the plan you have, or that you're, keeping that cost down. So every single year she went back to them, and the representatives at SHIP helped her to make sure that either the plan she had her drugs, or that she was on a better plan. You can do that too. They are a free resource. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. Okay. I'm not going to try and sell you something. And if I do try and sell you something, then you need to check and see if I'm a financial planner. We've had some issues with that where people purport to work for NPERS this year, or with NPERS, or what let's assess your retirement needs. Those are very scammy, kind of shady practices. Okay, because we will never cold call you. We will never sell you anything. Okay, that's just something to keep in mind. So if you're ever confused by somebody who might be talking to you, please give a call. We like to talk to people, and we don't mind saying, oh, no, they don't work for us. But not all financial planners are malicious and bad. Okay, maybe they're selling you the best thing you've ever had. It's up to you to kind of assess. With that said, let us open the floor for questions again.